Hey there everyone, this is Samuel Johnson and welcome back to the Pokémon Film Perspectives, and today we're going to be discussing the 18th animated film to be released as part of the Pokémon franchise, Diancie and the Cocoon of Destruction. Now before we get to talking about this movie, I want to give a bit of a heads up. The X and Y era of the Pokemon anime is the one that I have the least experience with. I stopped watching Pokemon regularly long before the XY portion of it came out. Like I said, I watched a little bit of Black and White, but then just kind of stopped keeping up very shortly in. So as such, the X and Y portion of the anime and onward is the portion of the anime that I have the least amount of experience with, as I did not watch X and Y, Sun and Moon, or any other seasons after them. I just only knew about what was going on in the anime from what I heard online or from the movies when I heard about them. As such, I have zero to no experience with the anime from this point onward. So if there are things that are brought up here and there that I am clueless on or need to pause the vlog for whatever reason in order to look up, I'm gonna do it, and I probably will end up flubbing some stuff. So I want to just apologize in advance for that. But, with all that said, let's talk about this movie. Now, when I was actively collecting the Pokemon movies, I wanted to mention that I got the Diamond and Pearl and Black and White films through the Pokemon Mega Movie Collections. And when it came to collecting the X and Y movies, I was originally planning to buy them all one by one, as at the time when I was making the collection, that's how they were available. However, it eventually came out that there was going to be a collection of the X and Y movies, and so I held out a little bit in order to get that. Although, before that happened, I did end up getting one of the movies, which is the movie right here. By the way, if anyone wants this, just send me a message. I have this here. If I give it up, I don't feel bad about it, because like I said, I do have a copy as part of the Mega Movie Collection for X and Y, so if you want it, go ahead and message me. I'll send it to you. But anyway, getting sidetracked. When it came down to it, my only experience with Diancie and Cocoon Destruction was first getting that DVD. I didn't actually sit down and watch it until I got the Mega Movie Collection. With that said, did I like it when I first saw it? No. Yeah, I'm gonna say that right now. I did not care for this movie when I first saw it, and it's not because of a lack of knowledge regarding the X and Y anime. I'm gonna say right now, I liked the other two movies that we'll be looking at after this far more than I did this one. No, this is just a matter of I just don't think it's a good movie. How is that? Well, let's get to our long-ass plot summary and find out. So, who's our main character? Well, as you can tell by the name of the movie, our main character is a Pokemon by the name of Diancie. This bejeweled pink Pokemon, if you can see that in the camera without the glare. That's good enough. This bejeweled pink Pokemon, who's supposed to be the princess of a domain of diamonds that are underground. Her constituents are, hold on one second, gotta look it up. Anyway, her constituents / populace of her kingdom are a group of Pokemon called Carbing, which, like Diancie, are supposed to be these diamond-like Pokemon that just kind of toil away in the mines all day. And the source of their power is this large diamond at the center of their entire domain called the Heart Diamond. It fuels energy and power directly into every part of the diamond domain, and so it's basically the only thing keeping this place alive. However, the Heart Diamond has been active for years, generations, and unfortunately, it's nearing the end of its life, at least according to the Elder. And so, he basically calls on Diancie one day and basically tells her that if their kingdom is to survive, then she needs to create a new Heart Diamond, as Diancie has the power to, well, create diamonds. Unfortunately, though, Diancie has not mastered this power yet, as while she can create diamonds, they don't last. They at best only stay around for maybe a short while, and then will just fade away, disappear, crumble to nothing. So if she wants to actually make a proper Heart Diamond, she needs to be able to boost her power, and unfortunately, she has no idea how she's going to do that. Thankfully, though, the Elder of the Carbing does claim that he knows of a way that Diancie could do this. For you see, there is a legendary Pokemon that the Elder Carbing once saw in its younger years. A legendary Pokemon called Xerneas, who is supposed to be a fairy Pokemon that's supposed to have power over life. And how this Elder came across Xerneas is that he once lived in a forest called the All-Earth Forest that had faced a major cataclysm where life was literally being drained out of the land. And this Elder Carbine and several other Pokemon were going to die because of this, but thanks to the intervention of Xerneas, they were all spared. And as such, this Elder Carbine believes that if Diancie can find Xerneas and bask in Xerneas' aura, then it should give her the extra boost in power to be able to properly create diamonds, including making a new heart diamond. As such, for the fate of her kingdom, Diancie decides that she will indeed find Xerneas, especially since she's never seen the outside world, so she'd love to have the opportunity. And as such, she and 3 other Carbine, including one named Merrick, who's I guess like her personal confidant or head bodyguard, I don't know, end up leaving their domain and entering the outside world. And, well, for several months, they search the land looking for Xerneas. But unfortunately, this journey is easier said than done, because Xerneas is always on the move. And while Diancie can track where Xerneas is, because, well, Xerneas and her are both fairy-type Pokemon, and thus she can sense its aura, well, again, Xerneas is big, and it's always on the move. It's also a large deer Pokemon. It actually looks rather majestic. I'll give it credit for that. So it's still harder to get a track on it, and unfortunately, while it may be able to leap and stride so enchantingly wherever it goes, well, all Diancie and the Carbine can do is just kind of hop in place. So again, they can't really keep up with Xerneas. As such, as time goes on, eventually it's just getting tiring for everybody. But one day, while Diancie and her Carbine bodyguards are resting, Diancie ends up noticing a nearby city, and, well, Diancie is a bit of a cloud cuckoo lander, so to speak, and prone to flights of fancy whenever something catches her interest. She's a little sheltered, I guess you can say. And as such, while her bodyguards were sleeping, she made her way towards the city because she thought it looked pretty and wanted to get a good look at it. And it's here where we actually can go back to talking about Ash and Co, as they are actually in the city. And of course, since this is the X and Y portion of the anime, and once again Ash's compatriots have swapped out. Iris and Silent have gone off to parts unknown to do God knows what, and in their places are 3 new trainers, a female trainer named Serena, an inventor by the name of Clement, and his young sister by the name of Bonnie, who apparently wants to try and set Clement up with a girlfriend. I don't know. Again, haven't seen the anime, so I wouldn't know. But yeah, they're in this random city, don't know what it's called, I genuinely do not know, and I don't really know why they're in this city. They could just be stopping here as part of their journey, but we actually do get our requisite opening credits fight scene, as we see Ash actually having a Pokemon battle with another trainer, and the music playing over it is a remix version of the original Pokemon theme. It's a kick-ass theme, I love it. However, interspersed with this battle is Diancie as she's making her way through the city, and we see that she's being targeted, specifically by 2 thieves. One is a woman named Marilyn, who specializes in fire-type Pokemon, and the other is a guy called Riot, or Ninja Riot, and he specializes in water-type Pokemon. And the reason why they're targeting Diancie is because, well, she can make diamonds. They want diamonds. Ergo, they want her. As such, they're trying to ambush her wherever she can go in the city, and while Diancie's able to evade them for the most part, well, she doesn't really have a lot of experience in battle, and so all she can really do is run until she gets cornered. Thankfully, as she is getting cornered at one point in the city, that's when Ash concludes this Pokemon battle, with him actually losing this time, especially when the other trainer utilizes Mega Evolution, which I'll get more talking about that later. But basically, as Diancie is cornered, Pikachu ends up hearing the fight from wherever the heck Ash and Co are, and thus rushes to go to try and help Diancie, with Ash and Co following after because, hey, they want to know what's going on. As such, they manage to find Diancie as Diancie is being ganged up on by Riot and Marilyn, and so as Riot and Marilyn are arguing with each other over who gets Diancie, eventually Ash comes in, and he's able to provide enough of a distraction so that Diancie can make a run for it, and thus ends up fleeing with Ash's friends, while Ash is able to basically take care of Riot and Marilyn's Pokemon, while a crowd ends up going on the scene and realizing, hey, those people are trying to hurt that Pokemon, maybe we should call the police. And as such, Riot and Marilyn had to pretty much make a run for it. As such, Ash ends up meeting back up with his friends, and they all introduce themselves to Diancie, who once more reveals that she can talk because telepathy. As such, the group basically is polite with Diancie, and she just starts hanging out with them. They sit down to have dinner, and she begins eating with them. And we see that she is a princess in every sense of the word. She has the manners, the temperament, the excellent language. She's basically just royalty. And even Bonnie even makes note of that, thinking it's adorable, although Diancie does not tell any of them that she really is a princess. However, during the dinner, Bonnie wants to go back to a restaurant or cafe or whatever it is, to try and get more food, and she invites Diancie to go with her. But unfortunately, there are 3 unwanted customers there, specifically Team Rocket. Yeah, they're in this movie too, and they did overhear that Diancie has the power to make diamonds, as when Ash and Co met up with Diancie, they learned who she was, but with Serena pulling out her Pokédex, and, well, there was an entry on Diancie and her abilities. Team Rocket overheard that, decided, hey, maybe we want diamonds, and so what they do is that in the restaurant, they just throw Diancie into a sack and then make a run for it, with the group seeing them run off with Diancie, but being unable to stop them for some reason. Either way, Team Rocket ends up releasing Diancie in a clock tower in the middle of town, and they basically demand Diancie make them diamonds. And while Diancie is able to figure out that they're thieves, as Ash and Co had to actually educate her on the term earlier in the movie, they tell her that if she wants to leave, she needs to make them diamonds. And so Diancie does comply, as she uses her power to make diamonds for them. A whole flood of diamonds, to the point where they're literally swimming through them like they're Scrooge McDuck. Although she does tell Team Rocket that maybe they shouldn't be disappointed. They might be a little disappointed by what they get, and to not be too upset by what happens. Although they don't really care, as Team Rocket gets so many diamonds that they think they're just going to be swimming in money for the rest of their lives. And as such, after Diancie fulfills her end of the bargain, she ends up going down the stairs of the clock tower to the main entrance for the area, but she finds that she can't get out. It's locked. However, someone outside ends up breaking it down with one of her Pokemon, as we see a girl come in who basically just tells Diancie to get out of here while she can. As such, Diancie ends up leaving, and she manages to meet up with Ash and Co, who are looking for her, and it's here where Diancie does reveal that her diamonds don't last, as we see that as we once more check back in with Team Rocket, and, well, all the diamonds that filled up the top of the clock tower immediately vanish, much to their disappointment. And that's all they contribute to this movie. Yeah, not even kidding. They appear in other parts of the movie, but once again, like almost every other movie, they're just following Ash and Co because they want Diancie. So, yeah, that was it. That was their contribution. They briefly kidnapped Diancie, and then they're just there for the rest of the film. Although there is a much grander story with the girl who was helping Diancie. And again, I have to pause this because I gotta look up her name and her father's name. Sorry about that, but yeah, basically Diancie tells the group that she was rescued, and we see her rescuer, this girl, as she flies onto the sky on her own Pokemon, as we see that her home is this airship that has the ability to camouflage with its surroundings, as it basically looks almost invisible, though you can see its outline and its textures. And it's here where we meet another duo of thieves who are searching for Diancie, Argus and Millis Steele. Argus is technically the boss of the operation, as this is all his technology, and Millis is actually his daughter, and they are also inconsequential. Argus may be a thief with vast resources, but ultimately he's just supposed to be a goofball dad who has a thing for chocolate. And Millis is basically the one with the more level head, but ultimately her big gimmick is that she wants her dad to stay healthy because he eats too much chocolate. That's all their character. That is literally it. However, like with the other thieves before them, they are interested in Diancie for her ability to make diamonds. The only problem is, they are actually fully aware that Diancie is having trouble creating diamonds, as they actually overheard Diancie talk about it at one point, as they have a series of spies throughout the city. In this case, these sword Pokemon, I forgot what they're called, who basically act as their eyes and ears, and anything that they see is projected right to the airship. So they're fully aware that even if they captured Diancie right now, that she wouldn't be of any use to them. Any diamonds that she make would just disappear. And as such, Argus and Millis basically think it's within their best interest to keep Diancie safe until she at least reaches Xerneas. Then they'll go in for the kill. And as such, they're just sort of hanging around in the background of this movie like Team Rocket. Only they actually have more of an impact than Team Rocket, but whatever. Either way, going back to Ash and Co and Diancie, Diancie reveals to the group that she's looking for Xerneas, and the group actually, and of course the group being the adventurous type and having befriended Diancie, volunteer to accompany Diancie to find Xerneas, and so Diancie allows them to come with them, and from there we just kind of see their journey as we see the group taking a bus, eventually camping out before somehow ending up on a cruise line, not a cruise, but basically a riverboat, and as they're continuing to follow Xerneas' trail, and it's from here we get, I guess, hijinks, I suppose. I mean, we do have a few moments here and there where Diancie explains what she's doing and how she's and how she wants to be able to create diamonds and all that stuff, but honestly, from here on out, what we see is not really much of what I'd call bonding, but more just events occurring. As we see the group just talking a little bit on the bus, but nothing's really developed. But there's one moment when they're camping out when Ash sees Diancie trying to create a heart diamond and failing, before Ash does actually share a legitimate moment with Diancie as he teaches her how to wish on a star, and he says he wishes that Diancie could create a bunch of diamonds. Then we see them on the riverboat as they're riding along and see a group of Weasel and Floatzel riding by the boat, and they're all just having fun. But there is one moment that happens on the boat that is sort of significant, as Diancie learns what the concept of friends are, as Ash and Co tells her that they're her friends and they're happy to accompany her on this. And this actually makes Diancie so happy that she once more creates another diamond, although she does suspect that it will vanish. But Bonnie thinks it looks pretty, so she decides to keep it on her as she puts it in her own little purse. So at the very least, even if it doesn't last, she's happy to have something. From there, the group somehow manages to make it to another city, and they just start wandering around a mall because, I don't know, they need to put their feet up, I guess. I don't fucking know. But while they're there, all the girls engage in a dress up montage, and I do mean all the girls, Diancie included. But it's during this dress up montage that Diancie actually sees her bodyguards wandering around because, hey, they've been looking for Diancie, and for whatever reason, she doesn't want to be found by them. I do not know why. I literally do not know why. Maybe she's afraid that they'll get hurt. Maybe she doesn't like being watched by them. Maybe it's a game to her. I don't fucking know. She just doesn't want to be found by them, so she freaks out, and thus she and the girls end up running back to meet with Ash and Clement, and thus when the Carbing arrive, she tries running away from them, and Ash and Co think that the Carbing are with the bandits, so they try and help her evade them, which eventually ends with them leaving the mall and end up once again clashing with Marilyn and Riot, and again things just get even more hectic as Ash and Pikachu hold off Marilyn while the group runs off into a nearby woods, and then they end up running into Riot with Ash coming in to save them again after he dealt with Marilyn. And the only reason that doesn't work out, and the only reason that things don't get even hairier, is because that's when Millis shows up and ends up helping Diancie and Co escape. On top of that, it's here where the Carbine once more meet up with the group, showcasing their bodyguard tendencies as they tank a hit from one of Riot's Pokemon, in this case Greninja, who is one of the few Pokemon from XY that I do know because he is in Super Smash Bros. Anyway, and that's when the group learned that the Carbing are Diancie's bodyguards and that she ditched them for the city that she met the group in. So yeah, it's just more hijinks, I guess. But the meetup with the Carbing does lead to some actual plot advancement, as the Carbing end up leading Diancie, Ash, and Co. back to basically a cavern that leads to the Diamond Domain. As even if they can't lead them exactly to where where the heart of their kingdom is, at the very least, all the caverns that are part of the Diamond Domain are connected as part of the kingdom. And so they go down there, but it's not very luscious. Like the first time we saw this place, it was all bright and shining and full of life. Now it's all dark, cavernous, and just dreary. And the reason for that is, the heart diamond went out, as the Elder arrives on the scene and explains to Diancie that while she was gone, it finally just went out. It died, and so along with it, their entire kingdom is kind of falling apart at the seams, as all the diamonds that were connected to the heart diamond are all just crumbling. And at first, Diancie is a little ashamed about this, since she was supposed to be a princess and she was supposed to protect them, but Ash tells Diancie not to lose heart over this, that all they need to do is find Xerneas and have Diancie bask in its aura, and she'll have the power that she needs to make a new heart diamond. And so this does reinvigorate Diancie, and so she, Ash, and Co, and her bodyguards and the Elder do end up leaving the cavern as they once more try and follow Xerneas' trail. And sure enough, the trail does lead them to, of all places, the All-Earth Forest, and the Elder confirms that this is the place. And upon arriving here, he gives the group a warning, because the thing is, this place may look lush and vibrant now, but it was still the center of a great cataclysm where literally everything died. And while there are plenty of Pokemon that call this place home now, well, when it comes to the carving, they consider it forbidden. And the reason for that is the source of the cataclysm. Because you see, the thing that basically destroyed the All-Earth Forest in the past was another legendary Pokemon. A Pokemon called Yveltal. And the thing about Yveltal is, let me put it this way. If Xerneas is supposed to radiate life, Yveltal radiates death. Everything that Yveltal does is basically death. Basically part of the endless cycle of nature, reinvigoration and destruction. And, well, the reason why Yveltal stopped causing its destruction, it went to sleep. You see, after Yveltal went on its rampage all those years ago, it transformed into a cocoon and has been lying sleeping at the center of the All-Earth Forest, or more specifically, the eye of the original cataclysm. And it's been dormant there for all these years. But the thing is, if anyone were to disturb Yveltal's cocoon, or the Cocoon of Destruction, as the movie actually calls it, well, that will wake Yveltal up. And let's just say he's a little cranky when he gets up, and will unleash a judgment of fury on whoever awakens him. So, the carving pretty much make it their one rule to never go near this place again. Unfortunately, though, Xerneas' aura trail goes directly into that forest, so whether anyone likes it or not, they all have to go in to find Xerneas. As such, everybody goes in, and, well, they find Xerneas. Yeah, pretty damn easy, too. They find Xerneas in what looks like a little clearing in the forest, and while Xerneas does end up leaping away, and basically Diancie chases after it and ends up tripping and falling and even falling down a hill, but Xerneas ends up helping her, and the two of them talk, as Xerneas also has telepathy, though it only ends up talking to Diancie in the movie. But the thing is, Xerneas is fully aware what Diancie was doing, why it's here, why she sought it out, and why she sought Xerneas out. And so Xerneas says, "Fine, I'll give you exactly what you want." And so Xerneas basically expands its aura and allows Diancie to bask in it. And not just Diancie, the whole group basks in its aura, as they all feel invigorated and strong. And so after this is done, Xerneas basically leaves, telling Diancie that she has the power of life within her, and, well, that is that. Diancie thinks that she's finally got everything she needs, that she's good enough to finally make a heart diamond and all that stuff. However, before she can demonstrate this new power, well, who should show up but Argus and Millis, who think that, oh good, you met with Xerneas, that means you can make diamonds now, you're coming with us. And thus, once more, it leads to a struggle as everyone starts fighting over Diancie, and not just between Ash and Co and these two pair of knuckleheads. That's ultimately when Marilyn and Riot appear back on the scene, and it basically just leads to a metaphorical tug of war, as all three of these thieving teams just try and grab Diancie and make a run for it, with Diancie struggling to fend them off, but not doing so well. Eventually, the conflict ends up taking everybody right to the center of the All-Earth Forest, specifically the center of the cataclysm that happened all those years prior, as they end up all falling into a cavern, with the only real landmark in this cavern being a small being a small ankle-deep pond. Now, on the surface, this place doesn't really look like that big of an issue, but every time someone steps into the pond, it's like their bodies radiate smoke, and something beneath the pond actually begins being affected by it. And so every time someone falls in, this thing keeps reacting, and eventually enough people end up stepping into the pond that whatever is reacting to the smoke begins waking up. And sure enough, when Ash and his friends arrive, and subsequently Ash jumps into the pond himself because he wanted to go save Diancie, well, the Elder sees where they are and tells Ash and Diancie to get out of there. And sure enough, even the smoke has gotten so big that the entire pond has now started just turning murky black and red, and basically everybody's seeing all this and begins stepping out of the pond. And it's here where we see what's been reacting, as rising from the pond is the Cocoon of Destruction. And the Cocoon begins hatching, so to speak, and it's here where we meet Yveltal. And again, I gotta give credit where it's due. I like the dichotomy of Yveltal to Xerneas. As while Xerneas looked majestic, amazing, and just awe-inspiring, Yveltal looks like the exact opposite. It's menacing, it's dark, it's angry, and its aura pretty much resonates doom, and I love it. And to showcase just how dangerous Yveltal is, the instant it wakes up, it begins attacking everyone. As while everybody tries making a run for it, Yveltal is just not letting anybody get away. As anytime anybody tries going further, Yveltal zeroes in on them and basically attacks them with one of its energy blasts. And to showcase just how much of an antithesis Yveltal is to Xerneas, its attacks bring instant death. I am not exaggerating. Every one of its attacks drains the life out of whatever hits it. I mean, it's not like people shrivel up and die, but they are literally turned to stone. Their life force just sucked right out of them because of Yveltal. And we see that as Riot and Marilyn's Pokemon try and help them get away, and they're attacked by Yveltal, and all of them just turn to stone. It's actually fucking horrifying. Even Argus and Millicent's Pokemon end up turning to stone as they try and defend the pair against Yveltal, and basically the only ones that make it out alive are the humans, and even they don't make it far. As Team Rocket, like I said, who were following all this, basically saw Yveltal's destruction and thought, you know what, maybe we don't need the Pokemon who can make diamonds. We like living more, and tried running, and Yveltal was like, oh no you don't, and blasted them, turning them to stone. And likewise, when Marilyn and Riot realized, you know, maybe this isn't worth it either, as they decide that they're going to leave too, especially after what happened to their Pokemon, Yveltal attacks them, and they get turned to stone in each other's arms. The only ones who don't get turned to stone are Argus and Millis, who basically manage to escape on one of their flying Pokemon to their airship, but even then, that just means Yveltal starts zeroing in on Ash and Co. And they try and evade Yveltal as best they can, even try countering its attacks where possible. But this thing is just too damn powerful, and all it takes is just one hit from this thing, and they're fucked. So they don't know what to do, what they can try. As such, Diancie is inspired to try and fight back against this thing, especially when her bodyguards end up getting blasted by Yveltal's energy and get turned to stone themselves. And so Diancie tries creating a new heart diamond, and it looks like she almost succeeds, as this one actually takes on full physical form. But unfortunately, all it takes is a blast from Yveltal, and it crumbles. So her power is still not strong enough. However, when she sees how badly everyone's fighting and however much everyone is sacrificing, this does give her a bit of extra conviction, as she realizes she's not going to stand down. She wants to do her best, and she wants to help her people and her friends. And something amazing happens. You see, remember last week when I talked about Mewtwo being able to Mega Evolve? I mentioned that in order for a Pokemon to Mega Evolve, they needed a stone. Now, I wrote it off in the last movie because that was before Mega Evolution was fully integrated into the Pokemon canon. And again, Mewtwo is a clone, so you could argue that they imbue Mewtwo cells with the proper energy to Mega Evolve. But the thing is, in order for a Pokemon to Mega Evolve normally, they need something called a Mega Stone. And in the Pokemon anime, a Mega Stone is not only required for a Pokemon to evolve, but the Pokemon needs a connection with someone. and thus usually the only people who can only Pokemon that can utilize Mega Evolution are those owned by trainers, as some trainers tend to have Mega Stones on them in some way or another, like in bracelets, an earring, or something, and thus that allows their Pokemon to Mega Evolve. So remember that diamond that Diancie gave Bonnie earlier in the movie? Well, apparently that diamond, through Diancie's connection with Ash & Co., has actually become a Mega Stone. Not even kidding. Like when a Pokemon Mega Evolves, it has like a little symbol that appears that appears over them when they Mega Evolve, and that symbol is embedded within the diamond. So when Diancie has this extra conviction to want to protect her friends, the stone glows along with her, and she Mega Evolves. And I will not deny, her Mega Evolution actually looks rather majestic. And honestly, I'll just give that credit. I think that's clever. I actually think it's really clever that Diancie is the one that created her own Mega Stone. That's actually good. It's good. It's kudos. I like that. I like that a lot. But either way, in her Mega Evolved form, she is able to muster enough power to make a proper Heart Diamond that is able to repel Yveltal's attack. This one ends up falling apart too, but that's more just from the full brunt of the attack. Regardless, it means that she does have the power and she can defend everybody. Unfortunately, Yveltal is still too powerful, and while she can make more diamonds, they will all fall apart with Yveltal's power. Thankfully, though, that's when Argus and Millis arrive as they come in on their camouflaged airship and decide to actually try helping Ash & Co., and they're taken out of the sky as Yveltal attacks them and then unleashes an attack right in Argus and Millis' face, which in turn turns them to stone just as their ship ends up crashing into a lake below. So, that's nice. Ultimately, though, Yveltal tries turning his attention back to Ash & Co., fully intending on turning them to stone as well, but then that's when someone else shows up, Xerneas, who sensed Yveltal's rampage and decided to intervene. And as such, the two of them do sort of have like a bit of a connection, so to speak, after Xerneas deflects one of Yveltal's attacks, and Xerneas is able to calm Yveltal's rage, and thus Yveltal stops causing random destruction and then just flies away. So at the very least, that means that's all good. Unfortunately, though, in the rampage, it turns out during one of Yveltal's attacks, Pikachu got nicked on his tail. It wasn't a full-on attack, so Pikachu didn't get turned to stone immediately, but it is turned to stone from its tail up, and it's actually still a rather horrific sight, as Ash is holding Pikachu in his arms as it turns to stone, and it's kind of terrifying. It's actually really sad, and you're like, what the fuck? But ultimately, while the moment hits hard, it doesn't last long, because, well, if Yveltal can drain life, Xerneas can give it back. And so Xerneas decides to basically pull its own variant of what Yveltal did, as it basically situates itself some nearby in part of the forest, and it begins basically it kind of starts exuding life directly in the land. And in doing this, it basically takes on its own docile form. Like, just as Yveltal took on the form of a cocoon of destruction, well, Xerneas takes on the form of a tree of life. And the tree just immediately begins radiating energy right throughout the land as it begins turning everything that Yveltal drained of life back to normal. All the people and Pokemon that were turned to stone are revived good as new. Pikachu is revived back in Ash's arms. Argus and Millis are able to fly out of their destroyed airship good as new. We see Riot and Marilyn as they're restored to life alongside their Pokemon. Even Team Rocket is brought back as they're thankful to be alive again. But eventually, as Xerneas does turn to a tree, he does have one final connection with Diancie, and basically just tells it the rough equivalent of life, that all of us have the power of life, and life is a gift, yada yada. I can't exactly quote it verbatim, but ultimately, it basically is just final words of wisdom before it starts slumbering the same way that Yveltal did. Yeah, that's that. Though everything is restored, Yveltal is no longer a problem, Diancie has her power, and thus the film ends as everybody goes back to the Diamond Domain. Diancie once more goes into Omega form as she creates a new Heart Diamond and her kingdom is restored to normal. She thanks the group for having helped her on her mission. She says she's thankful for having met them, and And that's when Bonnie realizes the diamond that Diancie gave them earlier didn't dissolve, and so they give it to Bonnie, and so Bonnie gives it back to Diancie as a form of their friendship, with Diancie happily taking care of it and saying she'll treasure it. Like I said, we see the Mega Evolution symbol in the diamond, signifying that it's a Mega Stone, and from there, that's where everything ends. As we just get our typical end credits, where they now segments. As we see Ash and Co going on their way, we see that Argus and Millis now run a sweet store. We see Riot and Marilyn as they're shopping for jewelry, with Riot proposing to Marilyn for whatever reason, and just Ash and Co doing their own thing while Team Rocket follows after them, while Diancie continues making diamonds. So there you go. So yeah, what are my thoughts on this movie? Still don't like it. I don't like it a lot. I'm not going to claim it's an awful movie, but I'm going to be honest for here. When it comes down to all of the Pokemon movies that I've seen so far, and what I will be seeing after this, I think this is the worst one. It's not... Okay, I want to make something clear. This film is not egregiously awful. There's nothing, like, offensive in it. There's nothing terrible about it. There's nothing in this movie that really makes me that angry. No, the problem with this movie is that it's bland. This film is bland. There is nothing to it that really makes it stick out for me. Nothing about it that really incites a lot of strong emotion in me, positive or negative. It's just a bland movie, and that's part of why I find it to be the worst one. When it comes down to all the other Pokemon movies, even the worst ones have had something in them that I have found at least memorable. I like Celebi, Voice of the Forest. I can at least remember the Iron Mask Marauder in that movie. Thought he was fun, especially with his Dark Balls and how silly and stupid they were. I liked that, and likewise the twist with Sam Oak was, while being the only interesting thing about Sam, was actually a pretty cool twist that I think actually does give a bit more layers to Professor Oak's character. Again, it's still not great, because again, Sam Oak was a pretty bland character with the twist that he was a young Professor Oak being the only cool thing about him, but still, and likewise in Pokemon Ranger and the Temple of the Sea, while that film definitely had its fair share of problems with a dumbass villain and a forced conflict in a lot of areas, at the very least it still had something nice and sweet with Manaphy and her connection to May, and even if the climax was so ungodly stupid, at least I could get some laughs out of it, even if I could still say, oh no, this is just bad. But hell, even Giratina and the Sky Warrior still had some pretty cool concepts, and Zero was definitely a batshit insane villain, and definitely knew how to grab your attention. This film does not do that. This film is just boring. I do not care about what happens in this movie, and nothing about it really grabs my interest. For starters, part of the reason for this is its pacing. This film is rushed. This film is just like, it feels like it's in a hurry to get from point A to point B and then point C and so on and so forth, without really giving a lot of time for things to breathe. And that flaw is as evident as early as the opening title. In most other Pokemon movies, they've usually given fanfare to the opening title, let things build up to the eventual reveal of what the movie is called. And those build-ups are pretty damn cool. Even if the film starts with the title and then goes to the typical prologue, there is at least time for things to build up and create anticipation for what we're going to be seeing. Not so with this movie. It goes right into the title, as if it's like, okay, here it is, let's get moving, let's go. And that's evident throughout the rest of the movie. The movie rushes from one plot point to the next, from one scene to the next, without really giving us a lot of time to settle down and get to know the characters. And any moments that we do have that are quiet have very little in terms of actual character interaction beyond the most basic stuff. And as a result, I don't find myself really getting attached. The rushed nature of everything keeps everything at arm's length. And because there's not a lot of time for us to really get to know our characters, I don't feel attached to them. And I don't like saying that, but it's true. Case in point, Diancie. Now, I will not state that I hate Diancie. I don't. She's a nice enough character. She's sweet, she's kind, she's patient, she's not a hindrance, and actively is kind. But I also don't give a shit about her. I just don't. I do not feel anything for Diancie in this movie. And that's because due to the rushed nature of how the film goes, we barely have a lot of moments to really get a grasp of what's going on up here for Diancie. We don't really see the struggle or turmoil she's going through. And that's partially because when the film opens up, we open with her in her kingdom and her being told, oh, you gotta go and get the power to make a new heart diamond, and Diancie just treats it like it's no big deal. And the thing is, there's no build up to her kingdom falling apart. When she leaves her kingdom, the heart diamond is looking fine, and we only have the word of the elder that it's going to die soon. So there's really no sense of urgency in that regard. And so Diancie does not feel, and so as a result, Diancie's journey does not feel as emotionally compelling. And by the time we get to the parts where it is emotionally compelling, we kind of skipped a whole bunch. Yeah, I brought it up as early on in this plot summary for convenience's sake, but literally how the film goes is that it opens with Diancie going off on her journey, and the next thing we see of her is that she's in the city without her bodyguard as she's being attacked by Marilyn and Ninja Riot. So as a result, we don't really see her desperation growing as she struggles to find Xerneas. And by the time we do see her struggling to want to create a heart diamond, it's too little too late. Even though there's supposed to be some struggling there, we don't really get a sense of the turmoil she's going through because we have no frame of reference for it. We don't really see where her turmoil comes from. It's just suddenly there, and it doesn't really make a lot of sense. It's just supposed to be a thing with her character, but we don't feel the same desperation that she has. We didn't see her trying to struggle and find Xerneas, and then by the time that starts to manifest, sadly, it's too little too late, and there have been too many happy moments beyond that. In fact, I will give that as a problem. Diancie is too happy. She treats us all, like, despite the fact that she's supposed to be in turmoil over not being able to help her kingdom, she's mostly just so happy and inquisitive and free-spirited that it feels like the drama revolving around her kingdom is forced. It doesn't feel like it comes out of it. Really doesn't feel like it comes from any natural place. And even when we do briefly revisit her kingdom halfway through the movie, and she realizes that the heart diamond really did give out in her absence, it doesn't feel like it was properly built up to. We were told early on, oh, the heart diamond's gonna die soon, and then when we come back, it's already gone. And but the thing is, because we didn't have a proper build up for that, it feels like it comes a little out of nowhere. Yeah, we were told about it, but they were like, oh yeah, no, it's gone now. Like what? Like literally 1 minute. Like, first time we were here, perfectly fine. Next time we were back, oh no, it died. It died. It died. Now you gotta really find those powers. It doesn't make sense to me. It feels dull. And to kind of compound that, just as I don't feel a thing for Diancie, I don't give a shit about her kingdom either. We barely saw this place the first time. We barely saw how life was like in this kingdom. And as a result, we don't have a frame of reference for how this kingdom is supposed to be. We don't see her people suffering beyond things suddenly being dark and the crystals are all falling apart because the heart diamond died. So I don't really care much about this place because I don't feel any connection to anybody living here. And as such, I don't give a damn what happens here. I do feel a little bit sorry for Diancie because this is her kingdom, but that's not in the sense of, oh, I feel so bad for her, and more in the sense of, oh, that sucks. And that's it. I don't feel anything for her. And again, while she's not a badly written character, I don't feel any connection to her. I don't see the turmoil that she goes through. I don't really feel I don't really feel the drama that's supposed to be encompassing her character here. I don't feel her sadness when she fails to create diamonds. It just feels like there's nothing. As a majority of the time we've seen her, she's been happy-go-lucky, exploring everything with her friends, just saying how lucky she is to be with them, acting all regal and princess-like, even before the group learns that she's a princess. Yeah, her bodyguard confirmed that she was a princess. And so, and so as a result, I don't feel the sense of turmoil that she's supposed to be in. And by the time we're supposed to see that turmoil, it's too little too late. Because by the time Diancie begins having her regrets, the third act begins. And I'm sorry, that's not good enough. It needed to have been built up to better. And as a consequence of that, her connection with Ash and his friends feels forced. They apparently spent a bunch of time off screen together, and they built friendships. But what we see of them, they literally become friends right the hell out of nowhere. They see that Diancie was being attacked by the other thieves, help her out, and then they volunteer to help, and then they volunteer to travel with her to see Xerneas. That's it. We don't see a lot of major moments with them. And again, you could argue that the moments they share beyond that were meant to be them bonding. But sadly, the problem with those scenes is the same problem I had with Jirachi Wishmaker and the bond between Jirachi and Max. It feels like a friendly relationship, but not deep enough that they actually can call them buddies. In the case of, it's just them goofing around and doing silly stuff. And even when they try to have serious moments, they come out of nowhere because we haven't seen a lot of the build-up. It would have been nice if we had actually seen Diancie actually try bonding with Ash and Co. Then her sharing her fears and insecurities and them trying to sympathize with her and thus allowing their bond to grow closer. But unfortunately, we do not have that. Even then, I would still argue that Jirachi Wishmaker was stronger in that regard, because at the very least, I still felt more sorry for Jirachi than I do Diancie. Because in Jirachi's case, Jirachi was kidnapped from his home by Butler and was being forced to be used as a power source for Butler to create his own evil Groudon. Here, though, we don't see the turmoil that Diancie is going through, and like I said, by the time we are supposed to, it feels like it comes out of nowhere because it wasn't built up to as properly. I don't feel the connection with her, and so as a result, I don't give a shit about her. I don't hate her by any means because she seems like a perfectly nice character, but I don't feel a personal connection to her, a bond to her that makes me want to see where she goes. It's basically more along the lines, if I ran into her in the street, I'd say, "Hey, how you doing?" and then just walk in the other direction. That's it. I feel nothing towards her, and that's a problem. I don't hate her, but I don't like her either, and the same goes for her kingdom, and it's all because of the rush nature of the writing. Things move too fast for things to really form a personal bond, and so as a result, we don't feel any connection to these characters or the struggles they go through. Hell, that even extends to the villains in this movie. I don't give a shit about any of these guys. All of them are interchangeable and bland. Argus and Millis, Ninja Riot, Marilyn, all three of these dumbasses are pretty much just standard fare. Actually, no, scratch that. They're less than standard fare. They are just characters with gimmicks. That's it. They occasionally pop up to try and kidnap Diancie, the group escapes them, and then they come back in a later scene. That is it. The closest we've had to more interesting character, the most interesting out of all of them, in my opinion, is Argus and Millis, and that's only because Millis comes in every once in a while to help Diancie, but even then, by the end of the movie, they're like, "Oh, okay, you met Xerneas, you can make diamonds now, okay, we're gonna kidnap you again," so I don't really feel anything for them either. They are quirks. That's it. They are quirks. Argus likes chocolate. Millis's daughter is the one trying to keep him from getting sick from all this shit. So there's their gimmick. That's it. That's all there is to it, and it sucks. It's a dumb gimmick, and as a result, I don't feel anything for these villains either. Don't hate them, don't like them, they're just bland. Bland as bland can be. They're just there. There to be a conflict, there to be a hindrance, and that's all they are. I don't feel anything for them. I don't feel anything for their journeys. I feel a little sorry for them when they're turned to stone because of how horrifying that is, but it's not enough for me to really be attached to them either. They're not villains I love to hate. They're not villains that are entertaining to watch. They're just bland. And it sucks. But the thing is, even with all that in mind, I don't hate anything here either. Like I said, Diancie I may not feel a personal connection to Diancie, but I don't hate her. She seems nice enough. I do at least. Ash and Co, at least, are still likable in their own regards, even if I don't know as much about the main cast this time around as I would with other Pokemon anime. And likewise, if I'm going to give another comment to this movie, I think the third act is the best. Not even joking in that regard. Seeing Yveltal unleashed is a horrifying sight. And honestly, even speaking as someone who never played X and Y, I love the dichotomy between Yveltal and Xerneas. I like that they're both meant to be like different aspects of nature, one representing life and one representing death, and that's the cycle of creation and destruction. And I like that. And that's kind of what I like about them. As while Yveltal does kind of act as the last-minute villain for the movie, as it's him awakening that causes everyone to freak out and run away. At the same time, though, I would argue that Yveltal isn't evil per se. Yveltal is a necessary part of nature because as much as we don't like to say it, in order for something new to be created, something old has to be torn down. And Yveltal is a necessary part of that. If something grows too weak or too frail and can't keep going on anymore, then it needs to be torn down in order for something new to be built up from it. And even going back to Yveltal's original Cataclysm, and that the elder Pokemon, I forgot. Hold on one second, I forgot the Pokemon name already. Sorry. But like I said, going back to the Cataclysm that the Elder Carbing had lived through with Yveltal's original rampage, that was... We see that the forest that Yveltal destroyed is now thriving even greater than ever. And ultimately, the Elder admits that there were rumors that spread around that possibly Yveltal did what it did in order to strengthen the immune system for this forest, which... I like. I think it's actually a pretty interesting idea, as it basically showcases that, yeah, while Yveltal may represent destruction, it's not evil per se. And you could argue, well, maybe it is evil because when it got woken up, it went on a rampage. Well, to that I respond with, wouldn't you be a little bit cranky if someone disturbed your nap? I think I would be. So I find that fascinating, and I do kind of like the duality of Yveltal and Xerneas in the film. As when Yveltal's rampage is over and it flies off, now calm, Xerneas basically has to go into its own slumber in order to try and re-strengthen the land that Yveltal destroyed and drained the life out of. And I find that honestly unique and interesting. I think it's really cool. I like that. But and likewise, I'll give credit where it's due to the cleverness. I liked by the end when we saw Diancie in her Mega Evolved form. I actually did like how they kind of hinted towards that with the diamond, as that was basically a Chekhov's gun right there. As Diancie created the diamond, thought it would just disappear after a while like all her other diamonds, but instead it became her Mega Stone, and it was through the power of that diamond she was able to achieve her full power and was able to evolve into her Mega Evolved form, and likewise be able to create a Heart Diamond. That's awesome. I'll give you credit like that. That's actually clever writing. I'll give you that one, movie. You did that right. So that I say kudos. To that I will say kudos. But kudos for those moments is not enough for me. When it comes down to it, the film, I feel, is way too rushed. It moves too fast for its own good and does not allow for as many character bonding moments as it should. And any bonding moments it does have are the most basic stuff before moving on to the next scene. As a result, I don't feel as attached to these characters as I should. I do not care about Diancie. I find her friendship with Ash and Co. to be not as compelling or as strong as it needs to be. I don't like the villains for this movie. I do not care for Diancie's struggle in the movie because the film barely showcases it as it is. And I'm not saying it's absent, but it's not as strong as it could be. And as a result, when it comes down to this movie, I don't hate it, but I don't like it. It's a very bland movie, and nothing about it really draws my attention to it. Hell, I actually forgot about all the thieves until I sat back down to watch it for this vlog. When I saw them, I thought, oh yeah, these guys were in it too. And when I thought back to the comics, I thought, oh yeah, there were other people there, weren't there? And I just forgot what they were. And that's ultimately my biggest problem with the movie. It's just bland and forgettable. And I think and that's part of why I think this is the worst Pokemon movie. It's not awful, and I could probably list other films before this that were probably worse, but at least those films had something more memorable to them, even if it was something bad. I can at least remember more about Jackie and how much of a jackass he was in Pokemon Ranger and the Temple of the Sea. I can at least remember the joy and fun I had when watching the first two Pokemon movies, despite how stupid they are. I can at least enjoy some of the stupid fun that comes from the Iron Mask Marauder. Not so much this movie. This movie, I think, is just a big pile of bland blah. It is not awful, but it is not good either. It is just it's just somewhere straight in the middle of that is uninteresting, uninspiring, and I think just forgettable. It is not, if you like the movie, more power to you. I'm just here to state my opinions, and if you disagree with me, that's fine. If there's something you saw in the movie that I didn't, I'm glad for you. I hope you do continue liking it. It's just for me personally, I think this film is just a forgettable, bland mess, and ultimately, I don't see myself wanting to rewatch this movie anytime soon. For all of its one or two clever moments or things that I genuinely admire about it, it's not worth it, and I just don't see myself at any point wanting to pop this movie back in. So, yeah, I think that's all I have to say. I hope, regardless of my negativity, that you enjoyed the video. And well, tune in. I hope you tune in next week, because next week we will be looking at a film that I do have a more favorable opinion of, as we actually get to a rather interesting story about the way one Pokemon's life was literally split in half, as we take a look at Hoopa and the Clash of Ages.